Our next guest is an award-winning journalist, the co-founder of Spy Magazine, the former editor of Vanity Fair, and the current co-editor of Airmail. His best-selling memoir, When the Going Was Good, An Editor's Adventures During the Last Golden Age of Magazines, is out now. Please welcome back to the show our friend Graydon Carter, everybody. Graydon.
I'm very good. Thanks for those kind words.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I meant every word. I mean, we were the sort of family, you know, I grew up in suburban New Hampshire, but Vanity Fair was a magazine that came, and it meant a lot. As a kid, growing up there, I felt like it was everything you wanted to be, which was a gateway to the most interesting people in the world.
We worked very hard to do that.
Well, and it paid off.
Oh,
thanks. You were very well-known, and obviously as a magazine editor, one thing you had to do is you had to edit the pieces of very famous writers in a lot of cases. Now, with this book, you're the writer. How were you dealing with your editors?
Well, I do believe that writers need editors. You just need an objective view to what you've written. And I had three wonderful editors. I had the book editor, Ann Godoff. I had a friend of mine, Cullen Murphy, who was my colleague at Vanity Fair and who edited me when I wrote there, and James Fox, who a very famous writer who helped me craft the book. And having been an editor, I took a lot of their suggestions. Sometimes they would say it's getting too Canadian, and I would sort of pull it back from that a bit. But they would take out, so they think they've done too much on this, too little on that, and I think editors are vital.
This is the golden age, 80s, 90s magazines. There was just so much money in magazines, and people paid a lot to advertise in them. And because of that, one of my favorite things about this book is your details of the expense accounts you had back in the day. Can you just talk about it? Because now that there's no more money.
We used it all.
Yeah.
No, the magazines, the golden age was the golden age of like the 80s, the 90s, and the aughts. And it was a golden age because editors were really good then. All magazines were terrific. So my competition was extreme. We competed against weeklies and other monthlies. And Cy Newhouse, our boss, he spent a lot to get the best talent. And one time, you know, we were negotiating over Annie Leibovitz's contract, and we were about $250,000 a year away on the negotiation, and he said, "Oh, give it to me." He said, "Let's not nickel and dime them." And I thought, you know, you flew the Concorde to Europe because they wanted you to fly the Concorde. And the thing is, there was a way of like making Condé Nast, which owned Vanity Fair, be the most attractive magazine company in a big, glamorous business, and it attracted the best talent as a result.
You talk about Vanity Fair, and it paid off in a way because that brand still means something. You started the Vanity Fair Oscar party, and you know we live in an era where there's fewer and fewer things that still mean what they meant, and that's one of them. You write in the book that you had an idea for the Vanity Fair Oscar party to invite all the actors who had ever played James Bond, but it didn't go great.
Well, no, so every once in a while we'd invite groups of people who that we thought would make interesting photographs of the party and would excite the guests. And so one year I decided I'm a big James Bond fan, and so I decided to invite all the men who had played James Bond up to that point. And for one reason or another, Sean Connery was playing golf in the Bahamas, and Roger Moore was doing something, maybe he was acting, and Timothy Dalton was doing something else. And we wind up with an actor called George Lazenby, who is a ruggedly good-looking Australian actor who had appeared in one James Bond film that's kind of the forgotten James Bond film. It's called On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and nobody saw it. Anyway, so he's at the Oscar party, and I see him standing over by the bar by himself. I don't think he knew anybody, and he's nursing a drink. So I thought I'd go over and say hello to him. So I go over and I said, "Oh, Mr. Lazenby." I said, "Hi, I'm Graydon Carter. I'm your host." And he was staring straight ahead, nursing his drink, and then he just turned to me and went, "Off." And so I said, "Okay." And he didn't get a lot of work after that.
Yeah.
It might have been more his...
He didn't really network. He didn't use the occasion to network.
He did not network.
This is an incredibly hard ticket. People would try to sneak their way into the Vanity Fair Oscar party. You talk about we have a friend come, Bronson, who did he buy an old Oscar?
This is a party planner in New York. We had a speed lane for people because we wanted to get as many famous movie stars and Oscar winners from that year into our party every year. So we had a speed lane for people with holding an actual Oscar. So it's our friend Bronson. He went out to the Valley and got an Oscar at a pawn shop and brought it in and just went through the speed line into the party. I was highly admiring.
That's really admiring.
Yeah.
But this is even better. So this is, I guess, 1996. Somebody brought a piglet and told the person at the door that it was the pig from Babe.
It was an Oscar winner. No, and somebody came out and said, well, they've got the pig from Babe outside. Should we let them in? And I went out and I looked at it. I mean, I don't know much about animal husbandry or anything like that, or barnyard animals. I said, it didn't look like Babe. I mean, and, you know, it's not like he could talk or anything like that. So, yes.
That's how you know it wasn't Babe.
Yeah, we let him in. We let him in.
Yeah, you did let him in.
Yeah, he was a good guest.
That's fantastic. Certainly better than Lazenby.
Yes.
We've talked in the past, and you talk in the book, you had Spy magazine, and this was a book that wrote about, and it was really sort of centered on New York personalities. And you didn't realize till after you left Spy that as much as maybe New York celebrities hated being in the pages of Spy, there was a worse outcome.
Well, I remember Nora Ephron once telling me she would go to the newsstand, leaf through a copy of Spy, be relieved not to see her name in it, and then be slightly miffed that she wasn't in it, because to not be in there meant you didn't have any purchase in the the grand parade that New York was in those days. And it was because there was a lot of people who all of a sudden had a lot of money. The city had come out of bankruptcy, and there were a lot of show-offs, and show-offs were good for our type of journalism at Spy.
A show-off you wrote about and have a long history with, and he ends up in the book a great deal, is Donald Trump. You once called him a short-fingered vulgarian, and that sticks with him. He's still, I'm sure he's still, when he sees you, that pops into his head.
Yeah, I mean, he had, I did a story on him in 1984 for a magazine, and it was his first national exposure, so I spent a lot of time with him. And I did notice and pointed out in the article that his hands were too small for his body. And at Spy, we had, funny epithets for people, and every time we mentioned his name, he was a short-fingered vulgarian. So, once they invented Twitter, he learned how to type away, and he sent me he put up 4 dozen negative tweets about me, calling me sloppy. He said my wife said I was a major loser. He said the magazine was failing. Our restaurant that we had, the Waverly Inn, the food was terrible. And that's actually at the top of the menu still. At the top of the... It says, worst food in the city, Donald J. Trump. And it's been there since we've had it. So, yeah. And no, I always used to say, I framed them all. I blew them up about this big, framed them all, put them on the wall outside my office, and I'd tell guests who came in, I said, this is the only wall he ever built.
There you go. Perfect outcome. Congratulations on the book. It's such a wonderful read. Graydon Carter, everybody. When the going was good as that now, we'll be right back.